Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we are cracking open a paradox. It's right at the heart of how we teach emotional health.
Yeah, and something many of us experienced.
Definitely. If you grew up, say, in the last 30 years, you were likely taught that feelings are things you name from a list, often laminated.
Usually color-coded, right?
Exactly. But what if that whole system, what if it fundamentally fails to capture the truth of what emotion actually is?
That's a really powerful question. And it's the core of the source material we're diving into today, mainly from Jaime Hoerricks, PhD.
Okay.
Their work argues that we prioritize the word, the label, over the actual wisdom of the body.
So you feel this huge, complex internal shift, maybe a tremor, a tightening.
Or a sudden sense of lightness, yeah. And then immediately, we're pressured to funnel that whole shifting internal weather into one of maybe 4 static boxes. Happy, sad, angry.
Or just fine.
Right. Fine.
So our mission today is to explore Hoerricks' proposal, which sounds pretty radical, that true emotional literacy needs to shift away from just linguistic labeling.
Towards something they call sensory fluency.
Sensory fluency, okay.
That's really the key takeaway we're exploring. Emotional literacy, reframed like this, means recognizing and responding to the body's own language.
The core idea being emotion is movement first.
Movement first, language second. The body isn't just expressing emotion after the fact. The body is the emotion, mid-transmission. It's happening right then.
Okay, let's unpack that because sensory fluency still sounds a bit abstract. Can we ground it?
Sure.
If we think back, like before we knew the words joy or fear, the sources suggest our first way of understanding was through atmosphere. Is that right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Think about the grammar of pulse, of breath, maybe the feeling of nearness to someone. Feeling arrives, as they put it, like a pressure wave, a chord, a tremor-seeking translation.
And this is where systems built purely on naming fail certain people.
Precisely. Especially those who process the world more holistically or through patterns. This includes many autistic learners and also what are called gestalt language processors.
Okay, wait, let's quickly define that for you listening. What is a gestalt language processor, or GLP?
Right, so a gestalt language processor, a GLP, is often a child who learns language in chunks. Think whole phrases, maybe movie quotes, song lyrics.
Instead of word by word.
Exactly. They use those full phrases, those gestalts, to communicate a really complex emotional meaning that the individual words just don't capture on their own.
So for these learners, emotion might arrive whole, sort of pre-verbal.
Yes, and maybe attached to a specific rhythm or pattern.
So if emotion shows up as this whole immediate atmospheric feeling,
Yeah.
literacy for them doesn't start with finding the right word on a chart.
No, it starts with noticing the subtle internal stuff. The rise of heat under the sternum maybe, or that sudden, very precise need to trace circles on the desk.
Ah, okay.
And we need to validate that these sensory shifts are language. They're not just, inconvenient behaviors before communication. They are the communication.
Like the example of the autistic child tracing circles in dust.
Exactly. She isn't just distracting herself. She might be regulating her breathing, focusing her attention. She's communicating her need for a kind of rhythmic coherence.
That brings us right to section 2, and this is where it gets really interesting, I think. The sources call traditional feelings charts, the ones we see everywhere, a foundational absurdity. That's pretty harsh. Why?
It is strong language, yeah. It's because they argue these charts fundamentally mistake labeling for understanding.
How so?
Well, they reduce this dynamic, three-dimensional experience effect into static flashcards.
Yeah.
Happy, sad, angry.
Right.
And the curriculum often demands that kids quickly identify and translate their inner world into that standard term. And in doing that, you often lose the truth.
You mean like when a child feels totally overwhelmed but learns to say they feel fine and they get praised for that because it looks like control?
Precisely. The system rewards that performance, that compliance, over genuine disclosure. And this becomes really clear when we look at those popular color-coded systems like the zones of regulation.
Okay, for those listening who might not know, zones uses colors blue, green, yellow, red to sort of categorize feelings and energy levels, and it offers strategies to get back to the green zone. It sounds helpful on the surface.
It sounds very orderly, very structured, but the sources we looked at offer a critical analysis. They argue these systems often pretend to offer empowerment, but actually deliver a kind of surveillance.
Surveillance? How?
Well, they train children to translate their complex internal weather into this bureaucratic, easy-to-read language. I'm in the red zone.
And then the response is usually prescribed, right? Go to the calm corner, take deep breaths.
Yes. an institutional solution.
Yeah.
And the inherent question that gets missed is, whose standard of calm are we regulating towards? Whose comfort are we prioritizing?
Right. Is it the child's authentic need or the classroom's need for quiet?
Exactly. And when emotional competence becomes just a performance of composure, it stops being about literacy and becomes about discipline. Hoerricks calls it a pedagogy of flattening.
Wow.
Yeah, the idea is that the unique, high-fidelity emotional signal of the child gets flattened out, so it fits the kind of lowest common denominator of what's acceptable in the institution.
Okay, but I feel like I have to push back a little here. For a teacher in a classroom with, say, 30 kids, don't they need some kind of common language, some quick way to check in for safety and just, well, managing the room?
That's a really crucial practical point. And the sources don't deny the need for structure. They challenge the starting point of that structure.
Meaning?
Meaning, if the implicit demand is you can enter our world, participate in our classroom, only if you describe your feelings in our terms, then we're creating compliance, not real connection. We might even be shaming the body's natural language.
So the structure should start somewhere else.
It should start with acknowledging the sensory truth first, before demanding the linguistic label.
Okay. So what does this actually look like then if we try to shift towards sensory fluency?
Well, it means we really commit to the body as the primary text. And the research is overwhelmingly clear on this point.
What does it show?
Studies on early development show that sensory motor stuff like vestibular input from swinging, tactile curiosity, rhythm, that's the foundational architecture for cognition and emotion. It's not just a preface.
So balance and rhythm come before empathy.
In a developmental sense, yeah. A child understands the world through rhythm and balance long before they have the words for complex social emotions.
Okay, that definitely reframes self-regulation because usually when educators talk about regulation, they mean suppression, right? Quieting the body, stopping the movement.
Exactly. But we need to redefine regulation as resonant.
Resonance.
Yes. True regulation is about restoring coherence, bringing the internal systems back into a harmonious sync. For that gestalt learner we mentioned, coherence might come through pacing or humming or swaying.
Things that often get labeled as distractions.
Or noncompliance, yeah. But from this perspective, those movements are actually the syntax of their regulation. It's their body's grammar in action.
So fostering sensory fluency is about helping the body become aware of its own language, helping a child know the difference between, say, pressure that feels grounding and pressure that feels overwhelming.
Exactly. And recognizing that the child who engages in repetitive movements, what gets called stimming, isn't just self-soothing. They are actively speaking in their first and maybe truest language.
We need to treat those movements like sentences the body is writing.
Yes. We stop seeing the body as this inconvenient hurdle to learning and start recognizing it as the primary vehicle for learning and comprehension.
That framework leads us directly into thinking about the hidden languages of play and art. The sources argue symbolic play is like the body thinking aloud.
Yeah, where emotion kind of externalizes itself into choreography. Play isn't just practice for communication. It is communication.
And there's research on this.
Absolutely. Work on creative group therapy confirms that for learners who rely on pattern and movement, play offers literacy in another dialect, the language of metaphor made motion. Things like mutual rhythm, imitating movements, those can unlock understanding where just talking fails.
The sources had some lovely little snapshots of this. I remember the example of Mateo arranging pencils.
Yes, arranging pencils into concentric circles on the floor and saying, it's the sound that keeps them friends.
That's amazing. He's building belonging with objects and rhythm.
It's a profound act of emotional architecture, using the language safest for him. Or Penny, the girl twirling her scarf during quiet reading time, and when asked about it, she says, no, it's thinking.
The movement is her thinking.
Right, her kinetic dialogue with the text. And the crucial insight here is, if you interrupt that play with too many verbal questions, like, what did that mean? You risk breaking the sentence mid-utterance. The play is the explanation.
So when words aren't enough, art becomes necessary. How do things like drawing or music work as direct translations of affect?
Well, researchers found that autistic children often use visual art, not just to represent an emotion, but to actually locate it.
Locate it?
Yeah, like the brushstrokes become a continuation of the feeling itself, not just a picture of the feeling. The line becomes breath, the color becomes pulse. The image isn't just symbolizing the emotion, it is the feeling translated into pigment.
And rhythm works similarly. The beat becomes the bridge.
Absolutely. Research confirms that rhythm and timing are fundamental emotional regulators. They enable what's called rhythmic relating,
Rhythmic relating.
where communication can actually bypass language systems entirely. You achieve synchronization, understanding, purely through shared timing and pattern.
So we really need to see these things. Art, music, movement, gesture, not just as nice enrichment activities.
Exactly. They need to be seen as primary channels of literacy, just as valid as words.
Okay, so if emotion starts in the body, our spaces, classrooms, therapy rooms, need to become sites of translation, not correction. What's the practical shift? What's the praxis here?
Well, the first step is actually quite simple, just noticing. Before reaching for that feeling chart, invite students to attend to what's happening inside. What's the texture? Is there warmth, tightness, stillness?
So the goal is just to meet the emotion first, not instantly name it.
Exactly. Meet it where it lives.
And the second shift?
Is integration, structurally. Movement, art, rhythm. They need to stop being treated as breaks or rewards and become part of the infrastructure of learning.
Like a morning rhythm circle, maybe? Or breathing together to a slow drum beat?
Yes, things like that. They build the scaffolding for this deeper literacy.
And this approach must change how we view meltdowns.
Absolutely. They stop being seen purely as disciplinary events. Instead, they become understandable as mistranslations.
Mistranslations, how?
Moments where the nervous system is trying desperately to remain truthful, to communicate something vital, but it's being forced to speak an alien tongue, or it just doesn't have the regulated capacity for that translation yet. The scream, the collapse, it's the grammar of a self trying to communicate profound overwhelm or disconnection.
This sounds like where certain therapeutic frameworks could really anchor this practice. Frameworks that look at context.
Exactly. Instead of asking, what's wrong with this child?
Yeah.
We start asking, what has happened to this child? And what does this expression mean in their language of safety and survival?
That completely shifts the gaze, doesn't it? From seeing pathology in the child to understanding the context and the communication attempt.
It shifts from compliance to coherence. We also see this applied in certain group therapy approaches. For instance, gestalt trauma.
Gestalt trauma.
Yeah, it's a form of group theater and action method where empathy is cultivated through embodied reflection and metaphor. Participants don't just talk about feelings. They embody them, they act them out, creating coherence through shared presence.
So regulation becomes resonance, a shared tuning process in the group.
Exactly.
So the teacher or therapist becomes more like an interpreter.
Yes, and the child becomes the author of their own sensory text. Emotional literacy, when we reframe it as sensory fluency, comes back to its real purpose. Making language wide enough, flexible enough, to actually hold difference.
Which reminds us that the essential work maybe isn't just to enforce calm.
Right. It is, the source material puts it so beautifully, to keep the air safe enough for storms to speak. We have to learn to value the truth of the tremor over the convenience of the label.
That really is the challenge for all of us, isn't it? To listen differently, to listen for that hum beneath the word.
Until maybe we can feel the beginning of the sentence forming in our own sternum.
We don't teach emotional fluency so much as we remember it. The body's knowing is always there. It should never be shamed out of us.
Well said.
Thank you for taking this deep dive with us today.